All right, thanks for coming back. So this is all about the student-led discourse and what it looks like in person and then also virtually. So here is a picture of some 7th grade students teaching 6th grade students about Socratic seminars in a 6th grade classroom. So we have the inner circle who they are talking and discussing something. And then the outside circle is passing notes, or they are being part of a cyber circle. So they're on polleverywhere.com and they're coming up with questions and statements, and that's appearing on the screen. You could also use Zoom or a WebEx like chat feature for that outside circle. And then you could also use something like Jamboard so that you have the inner circle and the outside circle kind of marked, and then people write their names next to it possibly. And then Claire's going to talk a little bit about what that looked like in her class.
So I really, in my 6th grade class, started introducing the kids to who Socrates was and where this idea of questioning came up and how powerful questioning can be, even though he was somebody who was persecuted for it. Those questions can lead to a lot of understanding, clarity, new learning. So we had some norms that we would come across or we would use in our Socratic seminars, both for the speakers and the listeners. And that was a key part of getting ready for the Socratic seminar. Another key part, rather than, Mara brought this up before, rather than the teacher asking the questions, was really getting the kids to write their own questions so they'd be more invested. And that's also part of that mutual humanization where we show that they're very capable of writing high-level, deep-level questions. And so even before we started the Socratic seminar, we would talk about the level 1, 2, 3 questions. And to make a strong question that can be talked about for a long time and keep that conversation going, you really want like a level 2 or 3 questions. So the kids had a lot of practice with that before we even got ready for this. So these are some examples from one of my groups. And then we would post these up on the board. So if that conversation ever stopped, the kids could just refer to their own questions to start it up again. Here are some more questions that the kids asked. Some were able to come up with more than others. They also had, in preparation for this, this in particular was about Malala, they read a book, but they also listened and annotated a speech. So they brought those annotations with them so they could refer to that speech. And here we just have some more questions from another group. What I did in the virtual world, we had hybrid for a while. And so we had kids that were face-to-face, but we also had our kids that were Zooming in, and we had them be a part of the Socratic seminar as well. And they could send their comments through the chat that another student or myself was monitoring, or they could come on the mic to also be a part of the Socratic seminar. So that was very new for us this year. We did find some good success with it, not as great as the face-to-face world, but we did show that we could still make Socratic seminar an important part of our instruction. Afterwards, I really wanted to find out if the kids could tell the difference between, like, how is a Socratic seminar different than just regular discussion in the classroom or partner work? And so I was pretty pleased with some of the responses that they were able to communicate with us, that they had an understanding that it was just very a place where they could agree and disagree politely. Everyone gets to participate. You know, they're building on each other's ideas, going back and forth. So I think we did a fairly good job with that. These are some of the things that the kids really liked about Socratic seminar. We had very few things that they didn't like, which shows why we should be doing this a whole lot more. It puts the power in their hands, but they also just gain a lot of learning and insight and understanding from each other. And then another question, since I sort of drove the topic for this one, although I tried to pick a topic that would be of very high interest to them, very few of them had heard about Malala before. These were some of the other topics they're interested in exploring this year.
So this is all about connecting that brain research about how our brain learns, starting with the sensory input and then moving towards playing around with that knowledge, trying to consolidate it, and then moving towards being a consultant and being a leader and a teacher. So for Socratic seminars to be really successful, you have to activate the senses and plan for that. And then think about how you're going to integrate the knowledge with students and then extend it and act on it. So we're going to lead you through some of these strategies, learning activities that you do before a Socratic seminar to make them super successful. One of the first things is to really look at the essential questions and make sure that they are really engaging to students, because you're going to use those essential questions for things like an anticipation guide or even to help guide the Socratic seminar. This is an example of what I showed students before we did a Socratic seminar about the impact of the Dust Bowl. And so we showed this image, and then we used Nearpod virtual reality, which is really easy to do and it's free. And then the students were able to click on this image and then move their head in any way or their iPad in any way to check out what the country looks like now in the area where the Dust Bowl happened. So in that area of Oklahoma, New Mexico, Colorado, Texas, and they were able to experience it, write about it, talk about it, ask questions about it. If we just do the Socratic seminar like the very next day, where we're just like, okay, now all the power is on you, it might not be successful. Like you have to warm them up a little bit and get them prepared for them doing more of the talking. Another instructional strategy that works well that I think we've all done, right? I think is a gallery walk. We've done this in our auditorium before, where if you have 25 students in a class, you might have 30, 35 pictures scattered around, and then they write down what their thoughts are about that picture or what they would do if they were in that picture. And then sometimes we publish that writing. So I do have an example here of what we've done with that writing before, because I think it's always nice to make the writing real and authentic and publish it for a real audience. So we used Adobe Spark to have teachers and students at Horning Middle School showcase their writing about humanity. And this is what it looked like. And then that went out to a larger audience. And this is an image of a student looking at a picture and then reading somebody else's writing and then adding on to it. So in writing, he's doing what he's going to be doing with the Socratic seminar. The Socratic seminar, he'll add on to somebody else's thinking. And in the gallery walk, he's adding on to somebody else's thinking too. So just thinking about those connections as you're planning. We've all done anticipation guides with students. So this is an example from Mara's class. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Sure. So obviously with an anticipation guide, it's a great way to see where students are before the discussion. We were looking at technology and Ray Bradbury and whether or not, what were his warnings, what were his the implications of some of his writing. And so anticipation guides are just a great way to warm them up. When Nancy came into my classroom, she then went on to, after the anticipation guide, to the four-corner debate.
Oh yeah, and I'll show this really quickly. This is the actual anticipation guide. We had to be really careful like what those statements were going to be to make sure that they were something that's going to elicit emotion from them, because then the four-corner debate was really important.
So using the questions from the anticipation guide to lead to the four-corner debate. I hadn't done a four-corner debate in my classroom. I'd done it as an adult at, having professional development. But with Nancy's prompting, which was wonderful, my class had almost a pre-Socratic seminar with those questions about technology, whether they agree, strongly agree, disagree, or whatever I don't know what the other one was, but But anyway, it was a great way to warm up to the Socratic seminar.
What I find too is they tend to, through their comments, they tend to sway other people to move over. So somebody that disagreed might move over to the agree side. And then you ask them, why did you just make that movement? And right there, they're right giving evidence and building on others' ideas.
Yep. And then there was some clarifications too that students were able to make on their own, like, oh, I was agreeing with technology destroying society, but that's not how I feel. And you'd see that movement.
Right.
So students that might have been sitting in their seats listening to me talk about, what do you agree or disagree? They actually got to physically move and actually like consolidate their thoughts about, oh, that's not what I thought the question was, and move to that other part of the classroom. So we saw a bit of that where students thought they were going to one area and then they ended up going, oh, I get it now. I'm not in the right spot. I don't agree, or whatever it may be.
And we'll share just a little bit of this video. Hopefully you'll be able to hear it.
When he shows us his point of view in the story, it's like the world is on technology, we're doing good. But then it's just, like it flops on us, like it backfires. Yeah, it backfires on us, like it shows us that.
I mean, such a sophisticated, something a high school or college level student might say in a philosophy class about how Ray Bradbury's setting up the story and how it's backfiring on society.
And this is also a student that doesn't always come excited to class, but during the days that he knew Socratic Seminar was going to happen, he was, bouncing in the classroom. When are we going to get started? Are we having Socratic Seminar today? So I guess I just want everyone to know that you as a teacher may not feel comfortable initially with Socratic Seminars, but you're going to find that you're going to have such a sense of satisfaction because the students are truly engaged.
And just trusting the process, right?
Right.
And this is a video too. I'm trying to remember where they were standing. If it was strongly agree, I don't remember. But this student is standing all by himself by maybe strongly disagree. I don't remember. And then most of the class was standing in the other, and they're having a debate about it. So here's this side.
I think he would be way more cautious because there is like way more colorful atomic bonds, more variants of it, and especially with world powers that have more of a devastating effect on the world. Because the world pretty much ended right now if we do something wrong to one country.
So it might seem minor, but it's not. But like there's a student looking back at his notes. So that's what you have to do during the Socratic Seminar. They're listening to each other. All of those things are helping them consolidate their knowledge and getting them ready for that Socratic Seminar. Let me go. All right. These are some other really powerful instructional strategies that work really well to prepare for a Socratic Seminar. It's from Project GLAD, so Guided Language Acquisition Design, which I've linked on this slide. So you're going to be able to access a lot of their ideas. There's something called exploration reports or observation reports. So you have images from the topic that you're going to talk about. And then the students write down what they observed, questions they have, and predictions that go with those questions. And then, I think they use this during the Socratic Seminar a little bit too. They might refer back to some of those questions when they're doing the Socratic Seminar and point to the wall and bring one of those pictures into the Socratic Seminar. Give some academic language too, I think, I do have an example of what a virtual gallery walk would look like. I'm using a Jamboard. So this might be something that you've used already. Instead of the pictures being around the classroom, you're going to have pictures on a Jamboard. Let's see if this comes up quickly. If it doesn't, I'll skip it. So think it's going to go too slow. Yep, it's going to go too slow. So I'm going to skip it for now. But what I did is I used Jamboard, and it has the pictures from the Dust Bowl in it, and then just a little direction that said, imagine that you're in this picture. What would you be thinking? And then they can add their ideas right to that Jamboard slide, or they could add it to something else that's more individual. It'd be up to you. Inquiry charts work really well too. It's like a KWL chart, but instead you have students brainstorm, what do we think we know about a topic and what do we want to know? And then as you can see on the example, you go back to it throughout the unit and you write down true or false. And then if there's a misconception about a topic, you write down what that misconception was all about. And then they answer those questions throughout the unit. So you're modeling what that's going to look like in a Socratic seminar. It's just like a physical representation of a Socratic seminar, kind of. And here's an example from one of our 8th grade classrooms of what it looks like when they're studying the colonies. Really important before you do a Socratic seminar to set the culture, right? Like what that's going to look like. This is an example. I don't know, you guys want to share kind of like what you've done?
So this is in my classroom. They'd already the year before had learned about Socratic seminars. So I kind of backed them up in time, and I wanted them to think about, you know, what are our values around Socratic seminars? What do we already know? And so I think starting with Post-its is a great way to get them all involved, because one by one they can share out their ideas, put it on a poster. But it's important to set the stage for the Socratic seminar so that they realize, you know, we're all together. We're doing this so that we can, you know, illustrate our learning and come up with new ideas and, you know, potentially become problem solvers for the future. So this is a great starting point for the Socratic seminar.
What I've noticed too, Nancy and Mara set up their 7th graders who had a lot more experience with Socratic seminars than our 6th graders. And so they brought them into the class and modeled for our 6th graders. And we didn't say much to the 6th graders ahead of time, and they didn't really even know about the topic. But after the Socratic seminar, we were able to write down what we noticed about what did they do well, what did you notice the speakers did, what did you notice the listeners did. And really through that process, they came up with their own norms for what a Socratic seminar should be like.
Mm-hmm. If you like Peter Johnston, which you probably do, like one of the things he says is don't assume that students don't know anything about discussion. Like let them try it out and then have them be metacognitive, like Claire's talking about, like what did you notice? And that usually raises the bar a little bit when it comes to the discussion. I also just love how it's called our shared values. You know, this is an example of what it might look like when students are taking notes for a Socratic seminar, what the text says and what you're thinking about it. Sometimes we do a critical analysis of the text too, like is it believable? Why should we believe it? And then those norms or those shared values can become your assessment. So here's an example of what that looks like from a student's perspective. This is from Anthony. He personally wanted to work on speaking, letting others speak in body language. And then he came up with what that rubric would look like. And then we conferred around it to see if he made gains in those 3 areas. There's no really like right way to do this. Like you could just focus on one shared value. You could do this together as a class. You could have students do it individually. They could partner up. You could do it lots of different ways and ask for students' input too.
And when students are part of the rubric creation, it makes it so much more authentic for them, rather than just handing out a perfectly created rubric. You know, this is beautiful, what's here.
Right.
Yeah.
Something else powerful to do, especially when they're really learning how to do Socratic seminars, is to pause, you know, a third of the way through and have them reflect on those norms. How is the speaking going? How is the body language going? How well are we using our text evidence? And get them talking about that, and then get back into the Socratic seminar, take another pause and see if we've made any improvement.
Love that. All right, and I think this is where we're going to pause for a little bit. Our next section is going to be actually about that student-led discussion and what that looked like.